Here we are again with another story, and the title of this story is A Desperate Plea. A young lady with long chestnut hair sat by a still lake while the wind whispered through her, causing her locks to dance like an unfurled banner. She looked around to make sure no one was in sight, for she had taken off her veil to sob with abandon alone. Looking at the murky waters, she could relate as she herself was feeling such a pain clouding her own heart. Her husband Elkanah had just left to speak with Eli the priest after they had all presented themselves at the temple in Shiloh. They once again had left Mount Ephraim and traveled a long ways as they do each year to keep a vow. She was ecstatic and had worn her best soft flowing robe, the color of white lily of the valley. She always loved to come and visit the Lord in His holy temple. The marbled pillars and floors, the high ceilings and skillfully crafted gold trimmings were a delight to the eyes. In the house of God she felt secure, for inside a certain peace and serenity encompassed like a warm woolen blanket. But then, just as of the past years, she had been deeply hurt by Peninnah's tauntings. For after they left the house of God and before they had parted ways, Peninnah ranted obscenities again, as she always did to her year after year. Hannah immediately hastened to her solace by the lake, while the other woman, with her children, went back to their rooms at the inn they had rented for the night. Peninnah, her close rival and adversary not of her own choosing or initiative, was her husband's other wife. Year after year, as they leave their city to bring their sacrifices to the temple, Peninnah had not failed to put her down. Today was no exemption, and while Elkanah had distributed a hefty portion to Peninnah for her and for all her children, she was not satisfied until she had released her venom on Hannah. She was in an even vengeful state earlier and had become more outspoken with her insults. Though their spouse had given her a double portion because he cared deeply for her, it had not stopped the other wife from gloating that she was the one in the advantage and the one who holds the upper hand. The words the vicious woman had let out to her, apart from their husband's hearing, were like arrows hitting their mark in Hannah's heart. The cruelty and spite she tried to endure were about to burst like hot lava that she had to flee. She was grateful for the time she could be by herself. Though dusk was near at hand, she had ran to her secret spot outside the premise of the temple, past the courtyard, and beyond a thicket of shrubs and growth where a body of water flowed freely. This was where she would often come to convey her sorrow to her heavenly Father year after year during their visits to the temple of God. She had chanced on it when Peninnah had made a joke of her, causing her great embarrassment before some friends they had met along the way. She had ran without heed to where she was going and had ended up at the lake where she was now. Ever since that time, she always found that it was easier to consult with the Almighty in the open temple. The sky above was an endless altar, and the soft grounds her pew. It was easy to express her feelings in the holiness of her secret sanctuary. She could revel in her thoughts there, and she could express whatever was in her heart without fear of judgment. Oh God, she has done it again. Peninnah had ridiculed me for not having any child of my own, while she flaunts that you have blessed her with many. I am deeply shamed, because though you and my husband love me, it does me no good, because your love nor his are able to ease my suffering year after year, she lamented. She sat pensive for a long time, lost in her care. Soon the heavens displayed tints of fire as the sun slid down. Darkness then encompassed the surroundings, while cicadas and night insects began to sing their evening songs. "Hannah, Hannah, where are you? Hannah!" The voice of Elkanah startled her. She quickly put her veil back on and raced towards the voice calling her. The lamps at the temple were all ablaze, and Elkanah was near the gates, with a torch in his hand. He did not see her right away as he called again, shouting her name. "Here I am, husband," she embraced him. "You have worried me again, Hannah. Come, now it's time for supper. Everyone is waiting for us, and I had told the cook to prepare you your favorite lamb dish. He gently embraced his wife and kissed her on her cheeks. "Now don't you fret." Hannah noticed that her husband always took special effort to console her whenever she felt disturbed. For that she was grateful. "Oh, Elkanah, I cannot stomach food right now. I'd rather go to my room to rest. I am exhausted," she pleaded when they neared the inn. "Please." Tears continued to stream down her face. Elkanah was deeply moved. "Hannah, am I not enough to you? Am I not worth more than 10 sons to you?" He discerned that it was her barrenness that had troubled Hannah again. "Oh no, my beloved, you are precious and dear to me. But this heartbreak is something no one can truly understand except me." So it was that Hannah had been able to excuse herself, but not long after she slid back to visit the temple. Eli the priest was seated on a bench by a post inside the large edifice when she entered. Hannah had not noticed him as she was still in deep lament. She prostrated herself before the altar and wailed loudly. She let out a torrent of emotions. "Oh God," she travailed, "my soul is not comforted. I am still deeply disturbed by my condition. Have mercy on me and open my womb. I shall never live to feel joy once again without having a child of my own. Have pity on me, for it is you. I share all my longings. You are able, for you are God the Creator. Nothing is difficult or impossible with you." Her cries were unutterable, and the words came up like a woman in labor with deep murmurs and groans. "I vow, O Lord of hosts, if you will ease my afflictions and remember me by giving me a son, then I will give him to you, and he shall serve you all the days of his life. No razor shall come upon his head. This is my promise, and I shall keep it. But do remember me, my God." Eli had been observing the visitor. Wasn't this Elkanah's wife? She was always a charming young lady and spoke with gentleness. How was it that she seemed like a drunken woman and in shambles now? Eli shook his head and walked toward Hannah. "Young lady, how long have you been drunk? Put the wine aside and fix yourself up. You are in the house of God." Hannah's eyes, red and swollen, turned toward the priest. She looked up to him, still shaken from her mournful prayers. "I am not drunk, my lord. I am just in deep sorrow and had been pouring my grief to the Almighty. I have not drank any wine or any strong drink. I am no idol worshiper. I have come to seek the Lord's favor to ease me of my sorrow." Her voice cracked as she answered. Eli felt such a compassion for Hannah when he saw her desperate countenance and gave her his blessings. "Then go in peace, and the God of Israel will grant you what you have asked of him." Immediately Hannah's face brightened as a confirmation in her spirit agreed with the priest Eli. "Oh, may it be so as you have said. May the Lord look with favor upon me, his daughter." Just then she felt the ominous dark cloud depart from her, and a lightness took over her spirit. She ate heartily soon after she went back to the inn. The piece of lamb meat with the flat bread that Elkanah had set aside for her tasted like a feast, and she ate everything on her plate up to the last morsel. The next day, at the start of dawn, before going back to their home in Ramah, the entire family returned to the temple and worshipped. After their morning prayer, they mounted their camels again and set for their journey home. The ride had been bumpy, but it was all pleasurable to Hannah. Everything around seemed more colorful and bright. A kiss of a butterfly on a red wildflower, the gentle nudge of a mother deer on her youngs behind. The wave of the sheaves of wheat entertained her on their way back. She saw the unmistakable confusion in Penina's countenance, but she set it all aside, determined to just be loving and kind towards the other lady. A year after her desperate plea, Hannah held a baby in her arms. Her face was radiant as she gently caressed the cheeks of her newborn. Wrapped in a bundle, she named her gift Samuel. It had been a quick and almost painless delivery. The squeal of her child had been like pure ecstasy to Hannah. Samuel was healthy. He was a healthy newborn. The joy she felt the moment she delivered her boy was unequaled, and it was a totally brand new feeling of happiness to her. The entire family had prepared everything for their annual trip to Shiloh when Hannah went into labor. Still recovering from her night vigil, she spoke tenderly to her doting husband. "Go and offer the sacrifices to our dear Lord, for he has been mindful and has not forgotten to comfort the afflicted. I shall not go up with you until our baby is weaned." Elkanah kissed his wife and child. His love for Hannah and his newborn were fully expressed in his face. "Do what seems right to you, my dear. Stay if you must, then," Elkanah conceded, giving in to whatever Hannah desired. Peninnah seethed with jealousy again, knowing that her mockeries had not destroyed Hannah, but had strengthened her opponent instead. Her face had turned crimson when the baby Samuel let out a cry for the first time. She had not expected for Hannah to conceive, much more to give birth to a male child. She sulked in a corner and rained down numerous complaints to Elkanah before she acceded to go with the rest of their household to Shiloh. Hannah felt ecstatic that the Lord had avenged her. She had no anger for Peninnah, but a sadness that the other woman still entertained rage in her heart. But Peninnah's power over her had finally been severed. She prayed that Peninnah would see the light of God, for only the presence of love himself could break every chain of darkness in anyone's heart. When Samuel had been weaned, Hannah dressed up in her best fineries again and visited the temple. She brought with her 3 cows, a sack of flour, and a bottle of wine as her offering. The priest was dressed in his complete temple garb when he came out to greet the proud couple with their son. Hannah then presented Samuel to Eli. "Oh, my lord, I am the woman who was here 2 years ago, the one you thought was drunk. Here is the answer to my petition of him. God has been gracious and has not failed to give me a son. I present him now, and I offer his life in service to God. May he be his faithful servant all the days of his life." Eli was amazed at the woman who stood before him, for her faith shone like a radiant sunbeam, attesting to the faithfulness of the God she served. Hannah then knelt before the altar as she prayed, "My heart is full of joy and happiness in you, my Lord. My horn has been lifted up, and I rise up higher than my enemies, because I looked to you and waited for you to deliver me. There is no one more holy or greater than you. No one can match with you. There is no rock like you, O God. O proud one, talk no more so highly. Let not arrogance come out of your lips, for the Lord sees and knows each heart, and by him every intent and action are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, and they that are weak are armed with strength. They that were full now beg for bread, and they that were hungry are now satisfied. The barren has borne 7 sons, and she that has many children melt like wax. The Lord has raised the dead, and those who think they live are brought to the grave. The Lord makes the poor to become rich, and he lifts those who are bowed low. He raises the poor up and the beggar from the mire, to set them among the royals of the land and make them inherit the throne of glory. The pillars of the earth is the Lord's. He will keep the feet of his saints, and the wicked shall be silenced. The strength of man shall not prevail, and the enemies of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. He shall thunder upon them, and shall judge the earth. He shall give strength to his king, and exalt the horn of his chosen one. Hannah realized the beauty in trusting in God. For though one may endure sorrow for the night, joy always comes in the morning. We now have reached the end of our story. Thank you for listening, and until next time, God bless you.